Hello everyone, welcome back to online lecture series on engineering thermodynamics. We are continuing our topic of second law of thermodynamics. So let's begin. First of all, we will do a quick revision of our previous topics. So in our previous lecture, we started a new chapter, that is second law of thermodynamics. So we begin with a qualitative difference between heat and work, or this is also the limitations of first law of thermodynamics, in which first law doesn't give any information if a particular process is feasible or not. So it is the second law which provides the criterion for the probability of various processes. So here work is fully converted into heat. However, heat is not fully converted into work as shown in this figure. So work is said to be high grade energy and heat is low grade energy. The next topic was cyclic heat engine. A heat engine cycle is a thermodynamic cycle in which there is a net heat transfer to the system and net work transfer from the system. The system which executes a heat engine cycle is called heat engine. So these are two examples of a heat engine. First is a piston cylinder arrangement and second is a small power plant. So here this is the way net heat transfer and net work transfer are there. So here we can define the efficiency of heat engine, that is net work output of cycle divided by total heat input to the cycle. So we can obtain the final formula for efficiency as 1 minus Q2 by Q1. This is known as thermal efficiency of a heat engine cycle. The next topic was thermal energy reservoir. It is defined as a large body of infinite heat capacity which is capable of absorbing or rejecting an unlimited quantity of heat without suffering appreciable changes in its thermodynamic coordinates. So there are two types of energy reservoirs, source and sink. There is also another kind of energy reservoir which is mechanical energy reservoir. It is a large body enclosed by an adiabatic impermeable wall capable of storing work as a potential energy or kinetic energy. Now the next topic which is very important is a statement of second law of thermodynamics. There are two types of statements. First is Kelvin-Planck statement and second is Clausius statement. The efficiency of heat engine is given by this. So the statement is, it is impossible for a heat engine to produce net work in complete cycle if it exchanges heat only with bodies at a single fixed temperature. So this was explanation about this, and there was also a definition of PMM2. Here there is a mistake. It should be PMM2, not this. Okay. Now the next was Clausius statement. It is impossible to construct a device which operating in a cycle will produce no effect other than transfer of heat from cooler body to a hotter body. And then we studied about equivalence of Kelvin-Planck and Clausius statement. And if it violates one statement, then at the end we found that it also violates the another statement. That's why both are equal. Now the next topic was reversibility and irreversibility. The second law of thermodynamics divides the processes in two classes: reversible or ideal process, and second is irreversible or natural process. The next topic was causes of irreversibility. First is irreversibility due to lack of equilibrium. First type of irreversibility is heat transfer through a finite temperature difference. A heat transfer process approaches reversibility as the temperature difference between two bodies approaches to zero. So this has already been explained to you people, everything about this. So heat transfer through finite temperature difference is an irreversible process. The next category was lack of pressure equilibrium within the interior of the system or between the system and surrounding. So now we are going to begin our new topic, that is free expansion. This is also the topic is irreversibility only, and we are going to study those processes which are irreversible in nature. So here, what is first of all free expansion? Here an insulated container, this is insulated container which is divided in two compartments, capital A and capital B, by a thin diaphragm. Okay, here there is a thin diaphragm by which we are separating these two compartments. Now capital A compartment, this compartment that is on left hand side, contains a mass of gas, and capital B is completely evacuated. Okay, now let us say that capital B, this diaphragm is punctured here, then obviously the gas which is present in A compartment will expand in B compartment until the pressure in A and B are equal. Now this process is known as free or unrestrained expansion, and it is a irreversible process. Okay, and let us assume so first of all, actually free expansion is irreversible process, and we will prove that this is actually an irreversible process. So to prove that, let us assume that free expansion is reversible and a gas in B returns into A. So whatever happened previously, the exact reverse process of that will happen, that gas in B will return into capital A with an increase in pressure, and B becomes evacuated as before, and there is no other effect. Okay, so here there is another case in which, here let us install a heat engine between A and B here. Okay, this is the heat engine, and the engine develops a work output W at the expense of internal energy of gas. So here as this high pressure gas is passing through this engine, so there is an output of work at the expense of internal energy of the gas, and the internal energy of gas in B can be restored to its initial value by transfer of heat from a source. So let me repeat again that what is exactly happening here, that the gas which was present in capital A, that was of high pressure, is passing through this engine. So because of that, it is losing its energy and returning in B. So here we are obtaining work output. Okay, and as this is low internal energy gas, we are providing it energy through this heat source. So whatever energy which was lost here in the form of work output, the same energy is being provided through this heat source, that is Q. Okay, so here now by reversed free expansion. So what is reversed free expansion? We are talking about this part. Okay, we are talking about this portion. So let by reverse free expansion, the system can be restored to its initial state of high pressure in A and vacuum in B. So now by some automatically the this B is getting evacuated and it is going back into A. Okay, so net result in this cycle is, we observe, is we are getting work output W through this heat engine is accomplished by exchanging heat with only single reservoir. Okay, and thus violating Kp statement. Okay, Kp statement means Kelvin Planck statement. So here we are getting work output with dealing with only single heat source. That's why, as it is violating Kelvin Planck statement, it is said to be irreversible process. That is, the free expansion is irreversible part. Okay, let me quickly repeat what exactly has happened here. That generally what happens, suppose if we begin again this theory, then here there is, suppose a puncture is there, so the gas which was only in A is going into B till the pressure becomes equal. Okay, so we are assuming that this process is reversible, then it is said that the gas in B will again go back into container A without any other effect. So now the initial state has been obtained without any other effect. So now this is the assumption that this free expansion is reversible. Now what we can do, that we can have this engine in between, and we can get some work output, and here at B we are providing the same energy which was lost here in engine, and after that automatically the gas which is in B is going back into capital A. Okay, so here what is happening, that we are getting work output with dealing only with heat source, and there is no heat rejection. So that's why this is violation of Kelvin Planck statement. That's why free expansion is irreversible process. Now we will move forward to our next phenomena, which is irreversibility due to dissipative effects. First is friction. So friction may be reduced by usage of lubrication, but it cannot be eliminated. So here friction may be reduced by lubrication, but it cannot be completely eliminated. You can see that friction is always present in our day-to-day life. So this is the example. Let us say that this is the flywheel which is being rotated. Here this is the flywheel which is being rotated, and this is the braking block. Once we take this braking block towards this flywheel, the braking effect will come into picture, and we have considered this both together as a system. So here suppose that friction is completely eliminated. Let us assume for a while that this friction is not present, then a movable device could be kept in continual motion without violating either two laws of the thermodynamics. So if suppose friction is not present, then this flywheel will keep on rotating, okay, in continual motion. So the continual movement of a continual movement of a movable device in the complete absence of friction is known as perpetual motion machine of third kind, that is PMM3. Let us consider a rotating flywheel is brought to rest by a braking block, that is this one. So as you can see in this figure also, that the distance moved by braking block is very small, and thus the work transfer is nearly zero. And if the braking process occurs very rapidly, there is a little heat transfer. Okay, so here in this case, by applying first law, we can write down this formula. Let me repeat this previous part, that here the distance moved by a braking block is very small. Okay, so there is a little work transfer, or which is nearly equal to zero. And if the braking process occurs very rapidly, then there is a little heat transfer. Okay, so work transfer is almost zero and heat transfer is almost zero. So this is our standard first law of thermodynamics, that is Q122 equal to E2 minus E1 plus W122. So this is for process 1 to 2, that is the braking process. And here, as it was written over here, that the work transfer is zero, and heat transfer is zero and work transfer is also zero. That's why we are getting that E2 equal to E1. So instead of this energy, we can write down internal energy plus kinetic energy plus potential energy. Okay, that is U2 plus mv2 square by 2 plus mgz2. And here V2 is 0. Why V2 is 0? Because after we apply brake, the speed of flywheel becomes 0. And we are assuming that the potential energy is same. So we are getting this formula. So here the molecular internal energy of the system increases by absorption of kinetic energy of wheel. So U has increased. Okay. Now the reverse process, that is the conversion of this increase in molecular internal energy into kinetic energy within the system to cause the wheel is not possible. So whatever happened in our previous slide, that after applying brake, the internal molecular energy has increased at the expense of kinetic energy of flywheel. So the reverse process, that the conversion of increase of molecular internal energy into kinetic energy, so this is not possible, and that we will prove. Okay, so we will prove that this statement is not possible. Okay, so let us consider 3 processes to prove this statement wrong. Process A. First, initially after applying brakes, the wheel and the brake are at high temperature as a result of absorption of kinetic energy of wheel, and the flywheel is now at rest. Now let us assume that the flywheel start rotating at a particular RPM at the expense of internal energy of the wheel and brake, so the temperature of which will then decrease. So this is the same thing which is written at the top, that the flywheel now starts rotating at a particular RPM at the expense of internal energy, so the temperature decreases. So here now let us continue with process B, that let the flywheel is brought to rest by using kinetic energy. Let the flywheel be brought to rest by using its kinetic energy in rising of weights with no change in temperature. So we are utilizing now, rather than using brakes, we are utilizing this kinetic energy of flywheel in raising the weights with no change in the temperature. So the process C, that is, now let heat be supplied from a source to flywheel and brake to restore the system within the initial state. So here we started with flywheel which is having velocity as 0 and temperature to be high. Okay, and now to obtain this state again, here we are supplying, in process B we have brought it to rest, so velocity has become 0 but temperature was not there, the increase in temperature was not there. So in process C we have provided heat from the source to the flywheel and brake, so we have restored it to initial state. Therefore when we combine these three processes, capital A, capital B and capital C, it constitutes a cycle producing a work. Now where this work is being produced, it is produced here by rising of weight. So here we are getting W output, okay, with a single reservoir. This violates Kp statement and it will become perpetual motion machine of second kind. That's why it can be said that the friction process is always irreversible. Okay, so this is irreversible process. Now the next kind of irreversibility due to dissipation of energy is paddle wheel work transfer. The work may be transferred in a system in an insulated container by means of paddle wheel is known as steering work. So here heat work is dissipated adiabatically to increase the molecular internal energy of the system. So here if you see with this figure you can easily understand this part, that here we are having work transfer to the system. So this paddle wheel will be rotating, and because of that here work is dissipated adiabatically. As insulation is provided over here, there will be an increase in molecular internal energy of the system. Okay, let us assume that the same amount of work is delivered. Now here let us assume that the same amount of work is delivered by the system at the expense of molecular internal energy, and the temperature of the system goes down. So we will consider this entire portion in two different ways. First part was what, that let us assume that this is the container in which we are having gas and it is fully insulated. We are providing paddle work, so W is provided to the system and the temperature of this gas increases. Now the second process is that the temperature of this gas goes down and we will be getting a work output out of this. So this will be a reversible process. And now here as the temperature of this gas has decreased, now we are providing heat source over here to regain the higher temperature. So the system is brought back to initial state by heat transfer from the source. So here heat source is provided, so again we will have higher temperature of this gas. So if we combine these two processes together, then we are getting work output with dealing only with single heat source. This is again a violation of second law or KP statement. That's why it is irreversible. Okay. So let me repeat this part again. So let me say, first is process, let us say 0, that W input comma U increases, that is internal energy increases, and temperature increases. And then process 1, in which what we are doing, so we are here that now we are discussing about this portion. Here we are getting W output, okay, U down, that is internal energy down, and temperature also down. Now the next is process 2, that is we are providing Q input so we have U increased and T increased. So what we are doing here, that let us say that if we focus on this much of portion, these two processes, and the initial state was this at the beginning of process 1. So we have achieved the same state over here, that is higher internal energy and higher temperature, and here we are getting work output W between this cycle and with only single heat reservoir, that is shown over here. So if you focus on only a combination of these two processes, then it is the violation of second law of thermodynamics. That's why paddle wheel work transfer is again an irreversible process. Now the next is transfer of electricity through a resistor. The flow of electric current through a wire represents work transfer. Because the current can drive a motor which can raise a weight. Okay, so here always consider that whenever there is a work transfer sorry, whenever there is the flow of electric current, it is always considered as work transfer, because current can drive a motor which can raise the weight, so it is a type of work transfer only. So here if you focus on this figure, that we are having this as a resistor and electric current is passing over here. Okay, so here the input is work is input, and we are getting heat as the output, as an output. Okay, now taking a wire or a resistor as a system and writing the first law of thermodynamics, then Q122 is equal to U2 minus U1 plus W122. Here both W122 and Q122 are negative. Why? Because here work is input, here work is input, so it is negative, and here Q is exiting the system, that's why it is negative. So both are negative. So W122 is equal to U2 minus U1 plus Q122, because if you consider that negative sign, then equation will be modified in this way. A part of work transfer is stored as an increase in internal energy of the wire, and remainder leaves the system as a heat. Okay, so at this steady state, the internal energy and hence the temperature of the resistance becomes constant with respect to time. So at this steady state, the temperature will be constant, so U will go, U2 minus U1 will be 0, because there will not be any kind of change in the internal energy. So W12 is equal to Q12. Now the reverse process. That is the conversion of heat into electrical work of same magnitude, is not possible. Now if it is possible, suppose it is possible, then the heat will be absorbed and equal work will be delivered. But this is again PMM2, so it is a reversible process. So here again the transfer of electricity through a resistor is a reversible process. Okay, now our next theory is Carnot's theorem. The statement of Carnot's theorem is this, that it states that of all heat engines operating between given constant temperature source and given constant temperature sink, none has higher efficiency than a reversible heat engine. So let us say that what is the statement over here? That let us say that here we are having heat source as 500 K and heat sink is 300 K. Okay, and this is, okay, let me make a bigger heat engine. Here we are having HE1, that is heat engine 1. So here that will be obviously in this way, and we will be getting W. Here again obviously here we will be having Q1 and Q2. And let us say that we are having same temperature limits of 500 K and 300 K, and here we are having heat engine 2. And here Q1 and Q2, and we are getting some another W, so this W will be different, and both are irreversible engine. Now here let us take the same 500 Kelvin and here 300 Kelvin. However, let us say that instead of using irreversible engine, we are using a reversible one, HE, that is reversible. Okay. So what is the meaning of reversible engine? That all the processes will be reversible one or ideal one. Okay, so here Q1 and Q2, and we are getting some output W reversible. So what is this statement is saying? I have taken three heat engines. So of all heat engines operating between a given constant temperature source and given temperature constant temperature sink, none has higher efficiency than a reversible engine. So the meaning is that out of these three, the highest efficiency will be obtained only in the reversible engine. So all other engines that are irreversible will have lower efficiency than the reversible engine. So that is the statement of Carnot's theorem, and we are going to prove this. Okay, so let's prove this portion. So here there are two cyclic engines. Let us first focus on this figure. We are having heat source at T1 and heat sink at T2. There are two engines which are operating over here. First is EA and second is EB. E stands for engines. Here Q1A is taken from source and Q2A is delivered to sink, and similarly Q1B is taken and Q2B is delivered, and we are getting work output WB. Okay, now let us focus on this theory again. That let two heat engines EA and EB operate between the given source at T1 and given sink temperature T2 as shown in the figure. Let EA be any heat engine and EB be a reversible heat engine. So let me tell you that here this engine is considered to be a reversible engine. Okay. EAB any engine and EBB any reversible engine. So we will prove, we have to prove that efficiency of EB is more than EA. So the actual statement stands that eta B is greater than eta A, and we will prove the wrong thing first. That is, we will assume this, that the irreversible engine has higher efficiency than reversible engine, and we will come to know that this is actually wrong. So our original statement is correct. So here let the rates of working of engines be such that we can say that Q1A is equal to Q1B is equal to P1. So let us say that both are equal. Okay, since eta A is greater than eta B, we can write down this formula, W upon Q. So as the denominator are same, as the denominator are same, we can say that work output of A is greater than work output of B. So here let EB be reversed. In this figure, if you see that reversible heat engine is actually reversed, so now it is functioning as a heat pump, and the magnitude of heat and work transfer quantities remain same. So these quantities remain same, but the direction is only reversed. So here we have reversed this engine, and since the work output of A is greater than work output of B as proved in our previous slide, some part of WA can be provided to the reversed heat pump, that is WB can be provided to drive this reversed heat engine EB. So since Q1A equal to Q1B is equal to Q1S, this is same, this source can be simply eliminated. What is the meaning of this? That rather than having this portion, let us cross this, and we will be getting this directly going from here to here. So the net result is what? That here when we combine EA and reverse EB together, it constitutes a heat engine operating in a cycle, produces net work WA minus WB. Why this is WA minus WB? Because some portion of WA is consumed in running this reversed heat engine, that is WB is there. So the net output is WA minus WB, while exchanging only with the reservoir T2. So we are only exchanging with T2. This violates Kelvin-Planck statement of second law. That's why this is not possible. So our assumption is wrong, and the statement which is the statement is this, which is correct. That is, the efficiency of reversible engine is always greater than or equal to the efficiency of irreversible engine. Okay, so this was Carnot's theorem. Now there is another theorem, that is corollary of Carnot's theorem, and the statement is the efficiency of all reversible heat engine operating between same temperature level is same. So what they are trying to say, again let us take two different engines. And all are at 500 K. And these are 300 K. Okay, and let us say that all are reversible engines, HER1, that is heat engine reversible. Here HER2, and this is HER3. And here we are getting this is the way all heat engines will operate. Here Q1, 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 Q2, Q2 and Q2, and here we are having the work output W for everyone. So if you see again this statement, that all efficiency of all reversible heat engine operating between the same temperature level is same. So what they are trying to say, that as all three are reversible heat engines and all three are operating at the same temperature limits, so what they are trying to say, the statement is eta A, sorry, it is not A, eta 1 equal to eta 2 equal to eta 3. Okay, so this is the statement that all three reversible heat engines will have the same thermal efficiency that we are going to prove. Okay, so you can pause this video and draw this figure if you want. So I am erasing everything now. So here we will say this portion, that let both heat engines EA and EB are reversible, okay, and let us assume that eta A is greater than eta B, but actually the statement says eta A equal to eta B. So we are assuming something which is wrong, and we will find out that at the end our assumption is wrong, so this statement is correct. So let EB be reversed to run, so as a heat pump, so some part of work output of A, WA, is utilized in running this heat pump, so WA minus WB will be the net work output, similar to our previous theory. Okay, so here what is happening, that we have already eliminated our heat source, and what is happening, that if you consider this whole system as a combined one, then we are getting a net work output over here, that is WA minus WB, net work output, and dealing only with one heat reservoir, that is sink. Okay, that's why it becomes perpetual motion machine of second kind, and so eta A cannot be greater than eta B. Similarly, if you assume the reverse thing, that is eta B is greater than eta A and reverse engine EA, then we will observe that eta B cannot be greater than eta A. So in both the cases, it is necessary that eta A is equal to eta B. So the statement is, the efficiency of a reversible heat engine is independent of that of nature or amount of working substance undergoing the cycle. The efficiency of a reversible heat engine is independent of that of nature or amount of working substance undergoing the cycle. So that is the corollary statement of Carnot's theorem. So our next theory is absolute thermodynamic temperature scale. So let's begin with the efficiency formula, that efficiency of any heat engine cycle receiving heat Q1 and rejecting heat Q2 is given by this formula that is already known to you, that eta is equal to W net divided by Q1, which is equal to Q1 minus Q2 divided by Q1, which is equal to 1 minus Q2 by Q1. By second law, it is necessary to have a temperature difference T1 minus T2 to obtain work from any cycle. That is, there must be a difference of temperature between heat source and heat sink so that we can get work output. So we know that efficiency of all heat engines operating between same temperature level is same. It is independent of working substance. Therefore, for a reversible cycle, the efficiency will only depend on temperature T1 and T2. It does not depend on the working substance which is there inside the heat engine, at which the heat is transferred. Or we can say that the efficiency of reversible engine is only function of the temperature of heat source and temperature of heat sink. Okay, where F signifies some function of temperature. So we can say that here if we continue from the same formula, this formula, that eta is equal to 1 minus Q2 by Q1, so same is here, and it is function of temperature T1 and T2. So Q2 by Q1 is equal to capital F T1 in capital F, that is function of T1 into T2. So by eliminating this 1 and minus sign, we have slightly modified our function of temperature. Okay, so here let us consider two reversible heat engines. Even receiving heat from the source at T1 and rejecting at T2 to E2, which in turn rejects to heat sink at T3. So we need to understand figure first. So if you see here, if you focus on this figure, that here we are having two reservoirs. Now the second reservoir is not at T2, it is at T3. Okay, so we are having heat source T1 and heat sink as T3. Now if you see on the right hand side, we are having single heat engine in which Q1 is taken and Q3 is delivered. So we are getting work output W3 as Q1 minus Q3. And here on the left hand side, if you see, rather than having one heat engine, we are having two heat engines. And here we have provided a gap here, that is at temperature T2. So this heat engine is operating in such a way that it is rejecting heat at T2, and this is becoming the heat source for the second heat engine E2. So here heat is taken and heat is rejected. So if you now read the statement, then it is easy for you to understand that two reversible heat engines, E1 is receiving heat from source T1, that is this portion, and rejecting T2 to E2 here, which in turn rejects heat to the sink at T3. So here we can say, as per our previous slide, that Q1 divided by Q2 is function of T1 and T2. And Q2 upon Q3 is function of T2 and T3. So when we combine these two together, that is, these two will now be combined. It constitutes a heat engine E3 operating between T1 and T3. So here Q1 divided by Q3 can be written as function of T1 and T3. Now Q1 divided by Q2 can also be written in this way, that is dividing numerator and denominator with Q3. So for this, it is function of T1 and T2, and it can be written in this way, that function of T1 and T3 and function of T2 and T3. So here the temperatures T1, T2 and T3 are arbitrarily chosen, and you can write down this formula before we go into our next slide. Okay, then it will be easier for you to understand. So better you write down this in your notebook. So now the temperature T1, T2 and T3 are arbitrarily chosen. The ratio Q1 divided by Q2 depends only on temperature T1 and T2 and it is independent on T3. So T3 will drop out from the right of the equation. Okay, let me write down this formula. That f of T1, T2 equal to function of T1, T3 and function of T2, T3. Okay, so the ratio Q1 divided by Q2 only depends on temperature T1, T2 and it is independent of T3. So T3 will drop out from the ratio on the right of the equation. So this T3 will drop out on the right of the equation, and after it has been cancelled, it can be written in as a function of phi of T1 and phi of T2, where phi is another known function. So Q1 upon Q2, that is this formula, is written as phi of T1 and phi of T2 because T3 will drop here. Okay, so phi is arbitrary function, and the simplest way to define the absolute temperature. Okay, let me write down this formula again in this space. Function of T1 and T2 equal to function of T1, T3 divided by function of T2 and T3. Okay, okay, so this phi of t is an arbitrary function. The simplest possible way to define the absolute thermodynamic temperature T is to let function phi of t is equal to capital T as proposed by Kelvin. Then we can write down Q1 upon Q2 directly as T1 upon T2, and the absolute thermodynamic temperature scale is known as Kelvin scale. The two temperatures on Kelvin's scale bear the same relationship to each other as do the heat absorbed and heat rejected respectively by Carnot engine operating between two reservoirs at the same temperature. The Kelvin temperature scale is therefore independent of peculiar proper characteristics of any particular substance. So this is the end of this theory as well as end of this lecture. So in our today's lecture, we started with few processes which we proved that irreversible, that is free expansion, then friction, then paddle wheel work transfer, then transfer of electricity through resistor, Carnot's theorem, corollary of Carnot's theorem, and last one was thermodynamic temperature scale. So this is end of today's lecture. Thank you for watching this video.